Welcome to the broadcast, my dear old fruits. I'm going to cut straight to the quick in relation to the 4-year battle of Prince Harry versus MGN, Mirror Group newspapers, which was settled today by Prince Harry. In some quarters, it is being churned out as a victory for Harry, and it certainly doesn't mean that I don't think that he deserves some sort of recompense for unlawful information gathering, because there was obviously a lot of dark arts at work, albeit decades ago, when his brother resolved all these issues decades ago by settling. In some quarters it's being painted as a victory, but mainly by the quarters of David Sherborne and Prince Harry. But to make it perfectly clear, despite the fact that the boy might have been wronged all those years ago, what you have seen today is nothing less than an abject failure of his court case. It is not a win by any means, and in my opinion he has lost, because this was a mission for him to slay the dragon. This was a mission for him to see things through to the very end. He's won nothing. He's won some money, if you want to put it that way, but he's settled. He has settled. And just as Prince William settled all those years ago, I'm not disparaging the fact that he's settled. What I'm disparaging is the fact that he's the prince that doesn't settle. He dodges on in there and pokes them all in the eye. I'm going to dodge this and I'm going to dodge that, and I'm going to slay the dragons. Oh, slay, Queen, slay. Well, this so-called king has not slayed, I'm afraid, my dear. This is a damp squib. It's the fuzzy end of the lollipop. And to be quite honest with you, my dear, it is an abject humiliation upon humiliation this week, with his very short visit, whether it's half-hour Harry or 12-minute Todger. It's all utterly abominable to think about, really, isn't it, my dears? He agreed a financial settlement for damages, negating the need for a second trial. So I'm relieved about the fact that we are going to be spared a second trial. The details have not been disclosed. David Sherborne, Harry's barrister, told Mr. Justice Fancourt that MGN had agreed to pay the Duke a substantial sum by way of damages as well as costs. My understanding is that £400,000 have already agreed to be paid by Mirror to Harry so far as an interim cost, with a possible legal bill of £2 million facing Mirror Group newspapers, and they've still got over 100 claims against them. So this could be a very expensive payout for Mirror Group newspapers. MGN are painting it as saying that they are pleased to have reached this agreement, which gives our business further clarity to move forward from events that took place many years ago and for which we have apologised. And as a reminder, when Harry won damages of 140 grand in December, that was relating to 15 out of a total of 148 newspaper articles from all those years ago. In that case, 15 out of 33 articles. So still, even though 15 of those claims went through and he was awarded damages, that was fewer than half of the 33 that were presented at that time. So who knows what would have gone on to be presented at a second trial to cover the rest of the 148 articles. And also, Judge Fancourt criticised the extremely confrontational way that the two sides have approached this legal battle. And remember, this does involve other claimants, not just Prince Harry. And he said that some claimants have refused to negotiate and are maximising the allegations without being realistic. Well, we all know that Harry's certainly capable of that. David Sherborne said this is the statement, by the way, on behalf of Prince Harry, the victory statement. And some of it, I will let them have the fact that some of it has a point. Everything we said was happening at Mirror Group was in fact happening. And indeed far worse, as the court ruled in its extremely damning judgment. In light of all this, we call again for the authorities to uphold the rule of law and to prove that no one is above it. That includes Mr. Morgan, and this is a big poke in the eye for Piers Morgan. Oh yes, Harry has got Mr. Morgan in his sights, who as editor knew perfectly well what was going on as the judge held. And I've told you before that I'm afraid, although there are pros and cons about Piers Morgan, I do believe that Mr. Piers Morgan was not quite as naive as he has painted himself to be. I could be doing him a great disservice, but that is my personal hunch. David Sherborne continues, Piers Morgan's contempt for the court's ruling and his continued attacks ever since demonstrate why it was so important to obtain a clear and detailed judgment. As I said back in December, our mission continues. I believe in the positive change it will bring for all of us. It is the very reason why I started this and why I will continue to see it through to the end. Well, he speaks about the mission continuing. He's got his Tom Cruise fantasy, hasn't he, my dear? Mission impossible. He's got to slay those dragons. Tom loves Willie. Ask anybody and they'll tell you. Everybody knows. Tom loves Big Willie. So get over your Tom Cruise obsession. You are not him. You're not going to replace him. You're not going to be as best he is. He is besties with Big Willie and Fair Catherine. My dear boy. My little Todgy. And he might have found it galling to see the photographs from the black and white gala ball that took place in London town at Raffles, because he was certainly not invited. Maybe that's why he dashed over here. He wanted to squeeze in a little bit of table time with Mr. Cruise and the assembled celebrants at this gathering before he headed back for his comedic gig at Las Vegas in Nevada, which we'll come to in a moment. But at this fundraising dinner, a most splendid evening was had for the Air Ambulance charity. And by the way, already it has raised £1.2 million. This is what William has managed to raise with the help of all the fundraisers, and this surpasses all previous galas, boosting the profile of helicopter first responders, paramedics and crew, the real legends of aviation. Prince Harry, the real legends. But one of his fellow legends of aviation is Tom Cruise, who was awarded the same honour some time ago. Oh dear, you'd think you were in Munchkin land here, wouldn't you, my dear? You'd think you were in Munchkin land here. One thing I will say, William, dear, there is no need to incline your head to the side when you're standing next to people who are more diminutive. It will not make your shorter neighbour appear taller. Don't bother about that, my dear. I've got to admit to you, though, I personally was more excited to see Sister Sledge, or what remains of Sister Sledge. Aren't they gorgeous? I love them. Ah, that music, heavenly. Nothing compares now, does it, my dear, to those old disco days? Oh, yes, caught in a trap, we are family. I've seen Sister Sledge live at a festival. Fabulous memories, I've got to tell you, but I digress. Prince William thanked everybody present and the public for the kind messages of support regarding the King, and he says it means a great deal to us all. And his speech was wonderful. He is a great speaker. He improves every year, he really does. I did notice that he's had some sort of body language coaching, which I don't like. I think it's unnatural, and I think it's for politicians. You know, a gesture here and a hand movement there. They go through underlining various spots in your script and make you do this and that and the other. And, you know, you go too far, you end up looking like Meghan Markle or a Fraggle. You know what I mean? Or Kermit the Frog with the hands on stilts. You know, that kind of puppetry affair, my dear. I'd warn him off it. I don't think it's necessary. If he wants to work on anything, then he should work on variation in his tones of inflection, because he does have a habit to go with a downward inflection on everything, and everything can become a bit low, and I'm not doing a very good impression of it, but he takes things down a little bit when it would behoove him to also bring some lightheartedness into the tone. That's just my observation. But he's royalty. He's not a celebrity. I get it. I'm just trying to bring the best out of him. But he looked gorgeous. He spoke very, very well. And the Earl of Snowdon was there, son of the late Princess Margaret Rose, and I thought he looked gorgeous. I thought he looked dapper. He's certainly maturing like a fine wine. Absolutely gorgeous if you're watching this, dear. Absolutely divine. And Diana's nieces were in attendance, Lady Eliza and Lady Amelia. I wonder what Harry thinks of that. Very supportive of their dear William, and of course an excuse to splash it all over their Instagram channels via various sponsors. But lovely news about Earthshot 2024, South African fruits. My Sefer fruits, you are in luck, you are in luck. We can all go out jolling, my dear. Enough of this schnottentrauner, because Earthshot is coming to Cape Town. The announcement was made by the partner multi-choice. 'Twill be the first Earthshot on African soil, Cape Town, in November. This is in November. They will be hosting Prince William's esteemed global environmental initiative commemorating 15 groundbreaking solutions to restore the planet. And in a further lesson in instruction for Harry, and a further lesson in how it is done royally, Earthshot have brought in £22.5 million, not just this year, but in 9 months. 22.5 million. Isn't that wonderful? And admittedly, 8.5 million of that is a transfer from the Royal Foundation, but that still leaves all the rest of that 22 million coming in from donations, 7 million in donations, gifts in kind, £3 million, and the American Friends of the Royal Foundation made a grant of 3 million, and then there's sponsorships and licensing bringing in the rest. So a good 14 million plus without the transfer of funds from the Royal Foundation, but all told nearly 23 million. Isn't that fabulous? In 9 months. It's the age-old fable, isn't it, my dear, of the tortoise and the hare, and Harry is the hare. Shut your ears up there, Mr. Bunny. Harry is the hare racing around trying to prove and todger it and show how to get things done. Whereas William, although I wouldn't call him a tortoise, my dear, but you understand the comparison. William and royalty itself. It's really about what encapsulates royalty. It's the long game, and it's not even a game. It's a way of life and a way of service. And it reaps dividends. It truly does. Harry, on the other hand, on the fuzzy end of the lollipop, reaps ridicule. And it seems that Las Vegas have been laughing at him rather than with him, because the jokes that he was telling at this NFL awards ceremony, oh, the way they landed. It wasn't with much enthusiasm from the brief clips that I saw. And to be honest with you, I agreed with certain articles that said that it was cringe-inducing. And this is the trouble, because you see, and this goes for all the members of the royal family, but when they're out and about shaking hands, you know, this is why Harry thinks he's irresistible, because they all fall at his feet, and it's not because of him, it's because of his role and his position. Well, the same can be said for laughter. Can you imagine, my dear, everywhere they go, every member of the royal family, even Prince Andrew, you know, they turn up and, oh, you're so funny, you're hilarious. Everyone's delighted. The quickest, most dullest remark becomes the most gay joke in Christendom, you know, as if they've never heard a witty remark before. You know, this befalls all of them, and this is why you need to be grounded and have your head screwed on, or you become this mass of ego. And that's what's happened with Harry, I'm afraid. You know, it doesn't translate to real life, you know. And this seems like the direction Harry is going in. We see it more and more to become this, you know, sort of comic, this onstage comic. Move over Richard Pryor, move over Ricky Gervais. We've got Harold, and he's sick and tired of people laughing at him, so he's going to pretend that we're laughing with him. No, lover boy. This is an attempt to disarm and to endear through humour, here in Sin City, aptly titled. And by the way, we're going to be seeing old Pinky and Perky next week in Canada. Brace yourself, Canadian fruits, my dear. My dear Maple Leaf Marvels, brace yourself, because they will be appearing together at an Invictus event. Oh joy! Oh joy! Harry presented the Walter Payton Man of the Year award, which was the final award and the highest honour. Well, we all know what the organisers were thinking. Get it on the front page, because From what I hear tell, it is a high honour to receive this award if you're into sports, I guess, which I'm certainly not. But, most of us overseas certainly haven't heard of it, my dear, and never would have heard of it. But you bring Harry to the event, there you get instant publicity, my dear. So good on them, whatever they got to do, whatever their hustle. But the winner, Cam Hayward from the Pittsburgh Steels, Pittsburgh, isn't it, my dear? The Pittsburgh Steels. He hugged Harry, he was pleased to see it, and he exclaimed, "Prince freaking Harry, I'm just shocked. That's Prince Harry." Yeah, that's Prince Harry, my dear, and they say that royalty doesn't count for nothing in the United States of America. Well, it seems to have impressed Cam Hayward. I'd be more impressed with Harry Connick Jr., or Harry Styles even, or Harry Burns from When Harry Met Sally, and I wasn't even keen on him, to be quite honest, my dear. What was Sally thinking? I think he was punching way above his weight there. And I've been to Cats, by the way, for all you New Yorkers. I know it's a bit of a touristy thing to do, but I suppose I was a tourist. Had a wonderful great big sandwich at Cats, at the spot where Meg had her orgasm, and yes, we reimagined it. Harry did not mention the king, which is something that has been brought up in the press, and his diagnosis. I'm actually delighted. I would probably be here complaining if he had put his father's name in his mouth. He didn't put a royal name in his mouth. I mean, he merged on his royal title, but he didn't put their names in the mouth, so I'm not going to criticise him for that. I'm glad he kept it private. He's a private boy now. Go off and do private things. Stay out of our face. Amanda Millett says, "Hello, River. Greetings from Louisiana." Well, I've just read where Prince Harry was handing out the NFL Walter Payton Award. Let me just say, that is pitiful and desperate. Harry handing out an award to AFL players. Sad. And I have to read that out because I know that it sums up what many people are thinking right now. How embarrassing. However, the wife was seen relaxed and smiling. She went out for a drive behind the wheel of her Range Rover, although it did induce a rather funny comment from one of you, my dear, very fruity, Marilyn Whittle, who said, "So funny, the Parco. She's been spotted doing an Uber delivery while H is out of the country of the USA. Too funny. Is she moonlighting to get the dosh?" Moonlighting to get the dosh as an Uber driver. Well, I've got to tell you, they're not paid badly, some of those Uber drivers. I get a hell of a lot of Ubers, my dear. I get them all over the place. And to be also quite honest with you, as much as people are protective over the black cabs of London, the old Hackney carriages, my dear, I'm afraid that it was such a tonic to have the Uber cabs, because even though, one or two of them can be dodgy at times, although not very often, to be quite honest, the black cabs here in London are so expensive. And I remember the likes of Piers Morgan defending black cab drivers, and I have every respect for them and their knowledge, but I have no respect for the prices that they have always charged. It might be fine for the likes of Piers Morgan to chuck a few £20 notes into the cab every time he needs to make a 5-minute journey up the road, but for the rest of us, or catching a cab back from a club, or if you're somewhere in town which is not extremely salubrious and a bit dangerous and you don't really want to get the night bus, there was no option really than getting a night bus or hitchhiking, unless you wanted to shell out a lot of money to get out from a zone 1 to a zone 2 or beyond. It was terrible, terrible price. You see it clocking up and up and up in the cab. Uber is more straightforward. You know what you're going to get, and it's a really fair price for the rider and for the driver. And I think it has really been a saviour for me in my life, and I find them quite reliable. Although I have every sympathy for the way that they might be monopolising the trade and the town and the business. It is regrettable. It doesn't come without pitfalls, and I'm sure a lot of tidying up could be had, but for someone like me who has to get around town and various other towns affordably, it's a godsend. an absolute godsend. But I started discussing this to tell you that I've had conversations with Uber drivers and I know how much they make, because they end up telling me. And they can make quite a hefty sum. Obviously, you've got to put a lot of hours in, but they can make really decent salary on that. So keep driving, Meghan. Put your foot down, get going and do a few journeys. But don't drink on the job, because there she is, supping from some concoction or other. And one could never lose her in the dark, could one? You could just never lose her in the dark. Just flash a grin. And there she is with those baseball cap and sunglasses combo. Lovely. And just briefly on the subject of Harry's dash in and dash out to Buckingham Palace earlier in the week. I call it performative, and so many of you agreed and chimed with me and said that I'd found the right word for it, and thank you for that. It was a performance. It was theatrics, I have no doubt of it. And Robert Jobson, who, as you know, is a journalist with well-placed sources, you know, he has some form as an insider, has been told that the reality of the situation at Buckingham Palace, Clarence House, was more complex than a devoted child rushing to pa's side out of merely concern. And he says that Harry actually caused some disquiet by taking it upon himself to fly over unbidden and at such short notice. And I'm going to quote now from the article. He says, "Put bluntly, the king was unhappy about what amounted to a fait accompli." He was unhappy. Served up by an emotional but well-meaning son. I'm not even sure how well-meaning he was. I think he was only well-meaning enough to want to hedge his bets, dodge criticism, and try and get in and out before the papers could turn on him for neglecting his father. Performative. Charles just needs peace and quiet right now, says the article, and had planned to fly off to the tranquillity of Norfolk with his wife, the Queen, much earlier on Tuesday. Harry held him up. Harry held them all up. It was total selfishness. Yet, thanks to Harry's intervention, their Majesties were left kicking their heels at Clarence House, their main London home, while they waited for the errant younger son to appear. And I can't remember from memory, was this after his first batch of treatment, either before or perhaps he went up to Sandringham and had it, but all the same, you know, this is when he was about to get his first dose of treatment, and he's having to sit around and wait around and fanny about. For the second son, it's a stunt. What a stunt queen. He's joined his wife in the realm of stunt queen. And it is incongruous with his behaviour in recent years. And that is why the whole world is raising an archy eyebrow and thinking, recollections may vary. Your controlling and shaping of the narrative might not be joyfully or totally received with belief. Her Royal Highness Princess Eugenie has been trotting about town, this time at the Walmer Castle pub in Notting Hill. She wore dark green tartan print with a grey beanie and trainers. And who is her accomplice, I hear you cry? Why, it's Harry's ex-filly, Cressida Bonus. Yes, Cressy Bonbons was joining in for the lark. And her mother, Sarah York, has been in Miami, as you know, my mummy's favourite, at the Out Living 100 event, which recognises Miami philanthropists, creatives and athletes. And she wore a white military crepe blazer by the Extreme Collection, and the bag was by Dolce & Gabbana. The mayor of Miami and his wife were in attendance and schmoozed with Fergie. Later, she appeared at a Cancer Alliance event as keynote speaker at Palm Beach. So it's nice to see her relaxing and enjoying herself after troubling times. The Queen made a long dash to Salisbury Cathedral. Beautiful, gorgeous Salisbury. Actually, it's been a while since I've been there, but I do like it very much. And as you know, I spent time in Wiltshire this summer, which evokes wonderful memories for me. It's one of the reasons why I go away fairly often with friends for a weekend to various parts of the kingdom, because the thought of that wonderful square at Laycock, with its gorgeous shops and houses, it warms the cockles of my heart in my memory when you're having a slightly busy day, or, you know, a slightly rum sort of day. The company and the food and the beautiful scenery of these wonderfully historic towns and places is a tonic. It's a real tonic that I carry with me for years, and it takes me right back there, my dear. And Salisbury is one of those places. It's a pretty place. And at the cathedral, a unique concert for Wiltshire, it was called, was held, celebrating local charities and regimental charities and the Bobby Van Trust and Wiltshire Air Ambulance. It was a musical evening, actually, and she dashed there because the local helipad at Sandringham was flooded, and so she didn't want to let anybody down, and she decided to take a car there. And it was a 5 or 6 hour drive, so she did that. And she was dressed in Fiona Clare couture, Russell and Bromley dressage boots. It was that Lorna Tusker clutch bag that we've seen her in of late, and Queen Mary's diamond set Celtic knot featuring a cabochon emerald. And she had one of her companions, her official Queen's companions with her, was the delicious Lady Sarah Troughton. How we adore her. And she was also there in her capacity as Lord Lieutenant of Wiltshire. Hello, Lady Sarah. Wonderful to see you. I hope you had a fabulous time with the Queen. And I thought it might be likely that perhaps afterwards Camilla trotted off with Lady Sarah to Ray Mill to spend a night back in the warm embrace of her actual home. The Princess Royal never stops, always on royal duty. And this week she was at the Science Museum declaring winners of the Queen Elizabeth Prize for Engineering. And the prize is a coveted 500,000 smackers. She wore the gold and diamond star brooch and this pretty green spotted dress with white flowers. Absolutely divine. And then in West London, as the Vice President of the British Horse Society, visiting Wormwood Scrubs Pony Centre to mark its 35th anniversary. And she cut a ginormous cake that looked absolutely scrumdiddlyumptious, didn't it, my dears? Scrumptious, look at that. She did the honours, and it's making my mouth water. And as you'll know, if you watched my video on what I'm eating at the moment a few videos ago, you'll know that I have been nil by mouth when it comes to sugar since the 5th of January. I haven't had 1 grain of sugar at all, and I haven't had a single plant or a single vegetable. And I will do an update on that perhaps in another month or two, my dear. I'm doing it for several months, so I'm not going to pop in an update all the time, but I'm afraid I'm still at the stage which is really rather joyless, and I do spend quite a lot of time fantasizing over munching on cakes like this. Oh, what I would give to stick my entire head in that cake and munch, my dear. Munch, munch, munch. Oh, I could eat the whole thing, my dear. Oof. The Duchess of Edinburgh has been in Maribel, France, as patron of the UK Armed Forces Winter Sports Association. She was attending the Inter-Service Snow Sports Championship, and it looks like a refreshing snow cone of an affair, doesn't it, my dear? And she was chic in quilted Prada, which was fur trimmed, with a crew neck jumper and soft shell ski trousers. And don't be distracted by the soft peaks and mountains that you see before you, my dear. The Duchess of Edinburgh is situated on the right, so please keep your attention there towards Sophie, my dears. She presented medals, and she is a keen skier herself. The Duke of Edinburgh, meanwhile, was draped in velvet, looking very debonair, the Debonair Duke, for the first day's gala, the National Youth Theatre's annual fundraising gala that supports emerging young talent. Okay, viewer comments, and we have one from Lady Elizabeth, who says, as much as I would like to see the King doing his duty, I think William should be moved up. He's young, and he has the support of his family and the people, I'm sure. I truly believe William is more than ready to be king. Well, that's your point of view, Lady Elizabeth, and I am grateful to receive it. It's a different point of view, so thank you for that. So don't take it personally when I tell you that I thoroughly and heartily disagree with that premise. I really do, unless the king was incapacitated in some way, either mentally or physically, truly incapacitated and required either a soft regency or a full regency from William, that would be a horse of a different colour. But under these circumstances, I could not disagree with you more when you say that William should be moved up. Presumably you mean that Charles should just abdicate. Should just abdicate after, a year and a half on the throne. Should abdicate and let William take over and just go out to pasture. I think it's a preposterous idea, aside from the fact that William is raising his family at the moment as well. And yes, the late Queen took the throne at 25, Victoria at 18. So it can be done, and it can be done with a certain amount of aplomb, but although William has a very heavy burden as it is, as the Prince of Wales and as he had as the Duke of Cambridge, he is still not held under duress every waking moment of his life like the King is. That is a job that never sleeps, never rests. That is the crown. I also feel that your premise is extremely ageist, Lady Elizabeth, my dear. You know, I say this with full affection, but I think it is ageist. Charles is better and wider experienced than William. He actually is a fountain of knowledge, intimate knowledge of his people and his subjects that he has accumulated over many years, and it's the kind of backstory that William is delving into now in his journeys around the kingdom, and the separate and individual tapestry that he weaves and that he is weaving. But Charles spent 74 years doing that, 73, 74 years doing that. He is wider experienced. He's a workaholic, perhaps to his detriment a little bit, but he is a workaholic, always has been. And he also has the support of his family, very much so, and from the people, as you've seen. So it matters not, my dear, if William is ready, if he's ready, although I very much doubt that he wants to plunge in at all and become king at this moment in time. I think that's a misconception that people have about the royal family, that they're all gagging to get on the throne. As even Prince Harry has said, nobody wants that job. Well, which might have been some passive aggression from Harry. I take that on board as well. But Charles was also ready several decades ago. Do you know, he was the longest serving heir apparent in history. And, you know, he does not deserve to be put out to pasture like an old bovine creature, especially when he's just getting going and when close friends of his tell us that he feels that he has much to do. And I think, well, I know that he has done sterling work. I really don't see how that can be argued. Regardless of his age, he is youthful in spirit, and he has been a workhorse, my dear. 400, 500 engagements in the first year of his reign. Sterling work, and people also enjoy having a sort of father and mother figure as king and queen, and that is what Charles and Camilla have turned into almost immediately. When the late Queen died, he became a father figure, and people want to enjoy that, at least for a while. William does improve every year. I haven't always been a massive fan of William's, I've got to tell you, not always. But he improves every single year, and he develops more gravitas, and it was seen very much, actually, at the Gala speech this week. And yes, he is ready to take the throne, if you want to put it that way. But he will be even more ready at 60 years old. You know, who knows when he'll come to the throne? It could be here in his early 40s, or it could be when he, I don't know, approaching 70. You know, miracle of miracles. Who knows? The likelihood is, I would say, late 50s, 60 years old. Nobody can say, but I think that would be a wonderful age for him. And even if he does take the throne at 60, that means if he lives till 99, when the late Duke died, then that means he could still have a 40-year reign, which is a long reign still. You know, it's still a long reign. If he took it now, then he could be more or less coming up to 60 years on the throne and as a reign. And I know that might suit some people, but, you know, your comment has given me the chance to explore food for thought on my position on that subject, my dear. But I could wrap it up all, really, in one comment, which is that it is simply not royal. It is not simply royal. It is not monarchy, my dear, to just, come on, let's move William up there. Charles has had his chance, and now he's ill, and he's got cancer. So, you know, let's just hoist him out. He's done his bit. You know. he was a nice sort of sideshow for 73, 74 years, but come on, we've got Big Willie coming up the rear, it's his time. Come on, my dear, that's a bit heartless, but feelings aside, it is not royal, it's not how royal families are. He's not a politician. This isn't a government. It is a royal family, and families live and then they die, and they take the oath for life, a life of service. And as I say, if the time comes when they are incapacitated or cannot fulfill their duties properly, as we've seen with Queen Margrethe this year, then absolutely it's grace to accept the fact that something's got to give and things have got to change. But that aside, no. And this same sort of lack of knowledge, I'll make it gentler than ignorance, but this same lack of knowledge has been shared by Joy Behar, is that how you pronounce her surname? Joy Behar of The View. And a few of you have brought this to my attention. Her comments made headlines, this Joy Behar. I received a comment from D.A., which was rather fruity, who said, "I'm so upset with Joy Behar on the TV show The View, bashing Queen Elizabeth. If possible, can you do a show addressing the woman's rude and ignorant point of view that the Queen should have abdicated the throne for Charles to step up earlier as king? The Queen was an amazing woman and she was a blessing in every way. I live in the US and I love the royal family. Also, Harry was a fool to have married Meghan. There are so many beautiful, intelligent and respectful women that live in the UK who would have represented the royal family the proper way with kindness and care for the people." Well, again, I must tell you, with all respect and with affection, my dear, that I do think your comment was rather histrionic, saying that Joy Behar was bashing Queen Elizabeth. I think that takes a stretch of the imagination. We've got to be adult, my dear. There's no need to be upset, as you say. I'm so upset with Joy Behar. Don't be upset with somebody for having an opinion, overstating something. That's what's getting wrong with this world. Do you understand? Not truly upset. I mean, we can get agitated, but it's just an opinion expressed, and bashing seems a bit superfluous, and I don't think that Joy Behar was intending to be cruel or rude. I think what it is that she is ignorant of our culture, quite obviously, and quite evidently. I watched the segment where she spoke about the late Queen. First of all, they shared sympathies, and for Charles, they were all really rather polite about extending those sympathies and good wishes. But then she did say about Queen Elizabeth, the woman was in the position for 70 years, the longest reign. I think she could have used some term limits. Why not step down and let Charles have his day in the sun? He finally gets to be king, and now he has an illness. It doesn't seem fair. There's something wrong about it. So I did feel that, moreover, she was bashing the system of monarchy, if you like, or picking fault in that rather than the late Elizabeth herself. But it all boils down to what we just spoke about, which is simply a misunderstanding or misinterpretation about royalty. It's not about stepping down and standing down to give somebody the chance to take the stage and the spotlight. That's celebritydom. That's loose women, or The View, or The Panel, or whatever all these shows are called, my dear, for somebody else to have their time in the sun with all kinds of dramas. Or, in soap operas, my dear. This is royalty. It's very, very different. A message from His Majesty the King to Grenada was shared marking their 50th year of independence. On the occasion of the 50th anniversary of the independence of Grenada, it gives me great pleasure to send you all my congratulations and warmest good wishes. Over these past 5 decades, I've watched with the deepest admiration as you have built your nation and forged Grenada's distinct place in the world and as an essential member of our Commonwealth family. Charles R. Congratulations, fruits of Grenada, and from all over the world. Do leave me a comment and tell me where you're tuning in from. I'd love to hear from you. See you next time, my dears. My tip jar is in the description box below, and I thank you very much. Ta-ra for now, and toodle pip.